Hi, my name is Josephine and these are my creatures. Hi guys, welcome back and happy Halloween! Today I have another 2D to 3D video for you guys. I'm sorry about my voice, I'm a little bit sick. It's not COVID, it's just a common cold and I'm getting a lot better. You might remember from last year's October how I created this witch doll. The design is created by Lavender Town. I had so much fun challenging myself last year that I wanted to do it again. This time I took inspiration from Baylee Jae's art. She created this design now 2 years ago. Where does the time fly? Because I remember I first watched one of her videos ages ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And then again when she tried doll customizing herself. I will link that video down below if you want to see it. And now I have been watching her content every week for the past 2 years. Basically when she switched to only doing vlogs and live streams. Anyway, I ended up purchasing this art print from her and other goodies as well. I especially love her pins, but turning a pin into a doll would be quite difficult, so I chose this witchy YouTuber character instead. With my inspiration at hand, I started to plan what doll I could use as a base. And looking at Baylee's art, she likes her characters very cute, round and with large ears. And when I saw, I think Jackie from Jackie O repaint one of these Cave Club dolls, I knew I had to use one for this repaint. The Cave Club doll's body is super cute, but it doesn't fit with the design. So I chose to use Briar Beauty as the body donor. You might have already seen this footage from my Kiwi doll video, because I used the leftover head and body for that doll. I lost some footage, as you guys may know from my XL Demon video, so I can't show you how I got to this stage. But you can watch how I made Lavender Town's Planchette witch into a doll. The steps are essentially the same. I knew right from the beginning what hair I wanted her to have. It's the same shade of Oxford blue I used on my mermaid doll. The reroot was a little strange since the doll's head is cut open and I have this loose scalp piece just floating around. But the process is the same. Pinch, catch, plunge, and then repeat times 1,000. And afterwards it was really easy to secure everything with glue, because for once I could see where I was placing the glue. I really like the Ever After High bodies, so I will only make minor tweaks to it. Like changing out her hand with Cleo, because we need that open waving hand, just like in Baylee's drawing. I also cut a small amount of plastic away at the elbow joint to get the hand to bend as much as it does in the artwork. The neck pegs are a totally different size, so I had to transplant the head with the neck to the new body. I use hot glue to anchor a piece of strong wire to act as a support for the new head. I mix some magic sculpt to fix the head permanently in place and to give her the right shape and the length of neck. Once the neck had cured, I smoothed the clay first with a craft blade and then with sandpaper. I also sanded the whole body in prep for the next step, painting. I custom mixed some acrylic paint and swatched it at the back of her head to see how close I could get. I needed some more tries, but got pretty close in the end. I mask off her hair and spray the first layer of Ms.SuperClear sealant. I do so outside while wearing a respirator mask. The print I have of the artwork is very warm toned, more so than the original digital drawing that Baylee made. But because it was the easiest for me to match to, that is what I did. I used 3 different oranges, a red and a peach colored pastel to get a nice effect going. I blush her cheeks, forehead and temples. I also add some shadows to the hollows of her cheeks and some eyeshadow to define the eye area some more. I also used the same colors on her body and sprayed the whole doll the second time. I used a lighter color first to map out where I needed to place the eyes, having my reference close at hand to not mess it up. Once I was more confident, I added a darker color, and I was not quite happy with my first try, so I tweaked it off camera a few times. Then it was the tedious task of copying the right side to the left side. I color in her eye whites and brown irises. It's always fun working with a more cartoony style than my own. It gives me the right amount of challenge. I sketch in her whopping amount of eyelashes, 3 in each eye. I really wanted to do a second doll with an open mouth, so that was one of the reasons why I picked this drawing from Baylee. But I do feel I went a smidge too big with it. I thought adding some lips would help to remedy that. I used acrylic paint to give them more volume and hide the subtle texture left from carving and sanding the vinyl. Baylee always draws these big ears for her characters, so I decided to emphasize the molding of the doll's ears. It's more detailed than Baylee's art, but I think it gets the idea across. I could not resist adding some freckles all over her. I think it just looks too cute on her. Another thing I really like the look of is PearlEX powder. It looks really crazy before sealant goes on, but afterwards it gives the most subtle glow. I go over everything to saturate the colors. Baylee doesn't really do pupils, so I just darken the iris with black at the upper part and the very middle. I seal the doll again to save my progress. I took a break from her face and gave her some long nails with hot glue. I trim them to the right length and then paint them black as they are in the artwork. I also paint her toenails, even though she will be getting socks and shoes in the end. But I know, and you guys know, that in the end, indeed, they are painted black. I did shade her eyes with PanPastels, but I did a poor job of filming that, so you can't see it. After the final coat of sealant, I finish off by glossing her eyes with Tamiya Gloss Glaze. And I added some matte medium to her lips to give them a natural finish. Not quite glossy, but not super matte either. In my feeble efforts of protecting the paint job from chipping, I cover the doll's body in matte varnish. I have not liked this varnish in the past, but I thought I would give it a go again, this time not putting MSC over it and giving it more time to dry. I think that helped, and the results are okay. I uncover her hair from the turban that protected it from the sealant. Now let's address the gaping hole on her face. Instead of using paper like I did with Planchette, I'm making the teeth out of Magic Sculpt. The top teeth are an easier shape to figure out, but the bottom ones are just guesswork, and after the clay cured, I had to go in and shape the pieces some more with a knife and sandpaper. I also sculpted some decorations for her hat. I painted the pieces on off-white color. Isn't this just a sight to behold? It's so scary. I painted the inside a dark red to make sure nothing would peek through. I also made a small tongue out of 2 tiny blobs of hot glue. All the tiny pieces get glued into her mouth within their correct places. This was incredibly fiddly, so I didn't film much of it. After I have finished this operation on her, I can glue her scalp back to its place. After adding her teeth, I ended up building up her lips more. It just looked too weird. I do know the drawing doesn't really have any lips, but sometimes you have to make tweaks and changes when you are turning something from 2D to 3D. Now that the base of the doll was done, I could move on to her outfit. From the drawing, you can see that she is wearing this fishnet top under her other clothes. So I made a pattern for it using cling film and masking tape. I clean up the pattern while I transfer it to paper. I sewed 2 tubes for the sleeves and connected everything at the underarm. She will be wearing other layers on top of this one, so I decided to sew her into it to reduce bulk. I was also a little bit selfish when choosing this art because the bottom half of her outfit is not included in the art, so I get to create something original too. This stripy fabric is my favorite one for making socks, so I made a simple pair of socks for her. I'm gonna try and show you in detail how I make simple bloomers / underwear. I used a similar method on my demon doll. I like using a ribbon to make doll clothing because it's already hemmed. I like the color of this ribbon, but it was not wide enough, so I connected 2 pieces. We will be gathering the bloomers, so you will need quite a bit of excess length. I also cut out the curved shape on both ends. I then sew the inseams. To gather the pant legs, I used a thinner elastic, and for the waistband, I will use a slightly thicker one. Now that I have both seams sewn, I can close the crotch seam. I decided at this point to braid her hair to get it out of the way while I work on her clothes. I put on the bloomers and start cinching in the waistband and both pant legs. I tie the ends in several knots to make sure they will not unravel. I then flip the bloomers right side out and put them back on the doll. I wanted the underwear to have a lot of volume to it so that it would hold up the skirt I will be making for her later. I really enjoyed making my last witch hat, so I was excited for the chance to do a second one. I pulled out my previous pattern to use as a reference point and ended up with a new smaller pattern, a bit bigger than what it is in Baylee's artwork, just to get it to actually fit the doll's head. I used interfacing on the faux suede fabric to make it not so floppy. Especially on the brim, it helped a lot. The hat is basically just 2 layers, the outer layer and the lining layer. To make the hat more posable, I hide a wire between the layers. There is also a second smaller wire at the edge of the brim to help make it more posable. I painted a strip of black pleather brown. I had to go in and prime it with white first to get the color to show up. I previously made some greenery pieces out of clay, and I will just paint them green. I will then glue in the strip of brown pleather and the leaf decorations. And here is the witch hat all finished. I think I should have made the clay pieces a bit bigger because my hat ended up bigger as well. But I decided to add a few extra pieces to get it to look nice, even though in Baylee's drawing there is only 3 different leaves. I showed you quickly that I braided her hair, but I ended up changing the placement of the braids to better cover up her scalp. There are going to be places where you can see her scalp where I could not reroot, but she will be wearing the hat, so I think it's fine. I set the curls in place with hot water. I decided to make her cape next, because I didn't know what I wanted the rest of her outfit to look like. I made a paper pattern and then cut out 2 pieces from the same fabric I used on the hat. I sewed up the shoulder seams and then added the collar between the 2 layers. I added a snap closure at the front because it made the most sense. The drawing has a small bow detailing the cape, so I made that out of brown pleather, just to make the hat and the cape match. I think it looks cute. While I finished working on the cape, her hair had dried, so now we can unravel the curls. I added 2 curls to the sides of her face with straws because the artwork has 2 tendrils framing her face. After it was all unraveled, I could give her a haircut. I locked everything in place with Blasting Freeze spray for screaming hold. It was time to make her skirt. I could not figure out what would look good, so I sketched a few ideas on paper. The first one was just a layered skirt. The second was inspired by this picture of a tattered skirt. But after looking at more of Baylee's art, I settled on this quilted look inspired by her pumpkin patch girl. I cut out a bunch of squares from green and blue fabric and sewed them on using my sewing machine this time. The seams on the squares ended up being 3 centimeters. I marked very carefully where the seams would go on every piece. This way I could have an even grid in the end. Of course, I had a very eager cat assistant with me, making sure I was doing a good job and not distracting me at all. The top pieces were taken in towards the waist to have less fabric to gather into the waistband later. I also added some purple squares to give the skirt a fun flair. To emphasize the quilted look and to prevent fraying, I top stitched the seams with a zigzag stitch with different color threads. I added a green and blue ruffle at the bottom and for a cute touch a pocket to her right side. She can stuff some herbs or other trinkets in there, for it actually works as a pocket. Waistband and a pull string will finish off the skirt. In the artwork, we can see some of her brown top, but the bottom half is cut off and some of it is covered by the cape. The shape that you do see reminds me of a corset, and I have been loving this 18th century stays look that has been popular in cottagecore fashion. So I wanted to try and make a pair in miniature, of course. I start by making the pattern using cling film and masking tape. I refined the pattern a bit on paper and then prepared the pieces of pleather. I decided to use this to create contrast through texture rather than color, because in the artwork the hat, cape and the bustier are all the same color. I think it works because most of the color is on the background and you have her hair separating things. But dolls need to stand on their own without a specific background. To assemble the stays, I first folded over all the edges and cut notches at the corners. The pieces were so small that I reverted back to hand sewing. I made a small error while assembling the pieces, but I was able to correct and hide my mistake. In the artwork, the bustier has these 3 little triangles at the top, and I could have just glued on a few decorations that were triangle shaped. But I realized if I would add some lacing at the front and laced it in a certain way, I could create these triangle shapes. I think maybe Baylee meant the triangles to be some sort of a closure or a clasp at the front. So my lacing is not too far from the artwork, I hope. I painted the binding at the edge just like it is in her art. The inside was quite ugly and the pleather stretches a bit, so I glued down some green fabric to help with that. To connect the straps, I used dark brown thread. I could see where the skirt ended and it looked weird, so I added a strip of that black mesh fabric and tattered the edges for a more witchy look. I laced up the back using black twine. I have a massive collection of shoes that I never use, even though I really like some of them, like this simple pair of boots. Because she is more on the cartoony side, a painted factory shoe seemed more fitting than a more realistic looking fabric shoe. And it helped with the deadline, of course. I used same browns as I did for the stays. The bottom gets painted black and some of the hardware gunmetal gray. I think it looked the best with all the other colors. The shoes also get a coat of varnish to protect them. I wanted to add some jewelry for her, and I think this star charm is very much Baylee, so I added that and some rings like she has in the artwork. I still had some pleather left over, so I thought a cute belt and a small pouch would look cute. I made a working buckle out of jump rings and some wire, and you can also close and open the pouch. And with that, she is done. She is riddled with small mistakes, imperfections and deviations from the original drawing, but I do think she is very endearing and I was able to capture the feel of the character pretty well. I know the open mouth with teeth is not for everyone, and she does look pretty deranged from certain angles, but I think there is something equally kooky about the artwork as well. It's like she had too many cups of coffee before filming her intro and she is just so excited. Creating the outfit was the most fun, but headache-inducing part. It was a challenge to get all the pieces of her outfit to work as I wanted. It was quite a puzzle. In the end, she is very cute. I would very much appreciate if you guys would tag Baylee. I would love her to see this video because she also collects dolls and Polly Pockets. And it's not every day someone recreates your art as a doll. Thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Like this video and leave me a comment. I would love to know what you think of my creatures. Until next time, bye! Spooky, scary skeletons, super stylish minds. Scary skeletons,